expect to be the All Blacks coach.
We got to stop picking fights with them online and each other online and saying this and that and just back them all the way through into the World Cup now, right? That's my rah-rah speak.
Woohoo! Well, it's nice.
Let's go!
Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening and welcome into the breakdown. Well, what a week. We had intense speculation, we had different news headlines every single day, and in the end, Ian Foster was reappointed, having reapplied for his job 3 times in the last couple of years. Joining us to discuss it all, Jeff Wilson, back from South Africa, Grant Nisbet too. Welcome back, you two. Isa Nathiwa as well. Is this the decision that we were expecting, Grant?
Depends what week you were asking the question, I guess, Kirsty. If you'd been asking us a couple of weeks ago, maybe not. I think after winning at Ellis Park and getting the backing of the senior players, I think Wednesday was a foregone conclusion, quite frankly.
I was glad that they just made the decision, right? They needed to come out and make a decision because for weeks there'd been conversations around who was going to coach the All Blacks.
We've got a new word we can't use. We can't use review. It's now a debrief.
Yes.
Things continually changing in the world of sport. Look, you know, I think, and Nisbo talked about it, it was clear he needed a result, Ian Foster and his coaching team. But when you get the backing of your senior players who come out clearly after the game and the day after the game and they've supported their coach publicly, it made it very, very difficult, Issa, for them to go down a different path. Just 13 months out from a Rugby World Cup. I'm stoked for Fozzie because his integrity and his character as an individual and as a coach, as a man, and the way he's held himself, he had every right to be smiling on Wednesday because in the end, when they sat back and looked at what he's trying to achieve and the adjustment and changes he has made, he gets retained. They make some adjustments to his coaching team going forward with Joe Schmidt. But I look at this and go, you know what? Good on him. He stuck to his guns, right?
I've never been so excited midweek for a press conference. It was...
We've had plenty of press conferences to get excited about.
And this, finally there was just, you know, a board member, Mark Robertson, Fozzie, and a clear statement. And, you know, they were clear on what they wanted to do. But I just think it's great that where they've put a line in the sand. They've said... he's here till the end of the World Cup, and from my perspective, then they can actually plan. It's none of these stepping on eggshells week to week, what's going on, what's not. So if the messaging is clear, Mark Robertson was clear, he's there till the World Cup, then you can actually get on the bandwagon and actually start supporting it.
If the win sealed the deal, or the win in South Africa, why did Mark Robertson not come out on the Sunday and back the coach? We were sitting here last week talking about it.
Yeah, good question, good question. He was probably a little uncertain at that stage, but I'm sure the senior players... I mean, how graphic was it last Sunday morning, Jeff? You and I were both there, when Ian Foster did a press conference and turning up almost unannounced were senior players Sam Whitelock and Sam Cane, and also Aaron Smith, who didn't actually speak. But they were there in solidarity for the coach. And I thought right there and then, there's going to be no change of coach here.
And my understanding too as well, there was another half a dozen players who wanted to be there. They were talking about the old-fashioned political background. You know, when you've got 7 or 8 people and you're going, what are they all on about?
Nodding.
But reality is Ian Foster didn't want that grandstanding, but the senior players insisted they want to be represented and gave the media the opportunity to challenge. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and Skolkberger said it, if you've still got the dressing room, if you've got the backing of the players, the guys that you're expecting to go out and deliver, they've started something. But they now have to back it up. Yeah, they have to continue to get better from here. But I think you're going to see some changes, and we've already seen those changes, like I said, with Joe Schmidt. But overall, New Zealand Rugby themselves admitted there were some mistakes. I just hope it never plays out like this again. Yeah, and we see a process, or there are the right people in the right positions in New Zealand Rugby to be making the accurate assessments ongoing of the coaching staff, so we don't back ourselves into a corner like we got where there was so much uncertainty.
Yeah, I think that they actually put their hand up, acknowledged that things might have been better handled differently. But then they've sort of put a mark in the ground to go move forward. I think it does put a microscope on them to actually do their job and do it even better. And, you know, they talked about high performance and said a lot in that. It's high performance, not just at a ground level, but it's at a board level. It's at, you know, the powers that be in the C-suites. You know, they're about high performance too for the better of New Zealand rugby. but at least everyone's moving forward.
I'd say to you then, Nisbet, we got a sense over there for the 2 weeks, and it was one of the great parts of being on tour once again with the All Blacks inside their environment. When I say that, just staying in the same hotel and conference centre in Mombella that we were at. But
is that what it was?
Well, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But it said resort. I'm not sure it was a resort. I can tell you that for a fact.
D block.
D block we called it. But if you talk about it, we saw something from that group, that there was some steel about them. There was an attitude about them, and I wasn't unsurprised that they got a result in Johannesburg, given the way that I'd seen some of their behaviours. Did you get that sense as well?
Yeah, look, I did. And maybe not so much the first week, and of course they failed. Any loss is a failure. But certainly in Johannesburg, when they knew that they had to win. And give credit, too, to the tour selectors, which I think Fozzie probably did it himself. He made some significant changes. Boy, that was brave, to bring in those 2 new front row props against the Springboks, and Frizzell as well, you know, and it worked, absolutely worked.
Well, Joe Schmidt has been brought in. He was a selector initially, and now he's got a more hands-on coaching role. Issa, you've been coached by him for a long time. What kind of coach is he? Is he a motivator? Is he a hands-on kind of guy?
Well, I think Joe brings a different level of intensity. There's not too many coaches. There's a lot of great coaches in the world, and then there's sort of, you know, he's been labelled Mr. Rugby. That's him for a reason. As a player, you often think you've brought an idea to the table. Lo and behold, he's probably thought about it from 6 different angles and 6 steps ahead of you. But then he also brings an unprecedented difference of level for coaches as well, and it makes coaches bring their game up another notch as well. So, look, he knows just how to get the best out of players, but he just doesn't let off. And, you know, he's very easy to prank because he's so focused on rugby the majority of the time. But he just brings this level of intensity ongoing, whether it's analysis, whether it's training, whether it's the game, what you were eating, you know. And I think that works for certain groups, and I think for this group, it was just a masterstroke with Fozzie.
Could I just ask you, Issa, falling back into the assistant coach role, having been the head coach at Leinster and Ireland for, 6 seasons, how will he feel about dipping back to his assistant coach?
Oh, one thing I know about Joe, and he'll have unquestionable loyalty, and I think that Fozzie brought him into the job, so he won't have any qualms about taking the assistant coach role, because his skill is being on the field too. So he knows that he can, you know, probably stay out of the press, not have to deal with the sort of top decisions, you know, that Fozzie will take care of, and it'll let him go and do his job 10 times better.
2 things I want to say is the fact that you talk to anyone inside the Blues, his ability on the field, his love for being out on the field coaching, and when he was forced to get inside the environment early on in the season when all the teams head to Queenstown, he was loving it. And the feedback, you know, I heard from inside the team was they were loving his input, his passion, his level of detail. He's got a clear level of understanding of the game that is rare in this. But the one other word you mentioned was motivation. I'm sorry, but if you're an All Black, you don't need motivating. Because if you're in the All Black jersey, that should be motivation enough. The fact that you talk to any player who gets the opportunity to play in the jersey, it's not about getting selected as being the best you can be and being a great All Black and giving it service. So he shouldn't need to go and motivate anybody. If you need motivation, you shouldn't be in that squad because the responsibility is yours. And so that's where I think, once again, that shouldn't fall under his brief. It won't fall under his brief. His brief will be in the detail of helping this team on the field be a better rugby side, and I think that's where his great value will be.
I think it's quite a scary thought what he can do, because he has always been at teams, whether it was Clermont, Leinster, Ireland, that he's had to sort of have a group of players, build them up, and then absolutely perform. But they still talk about him. They still talk about him in Clermont. They still talk about him weekly at Leinster and Ireland. They'll still talk about him in Ireland camp and what he did in his time there. But now he's coming to the elite of elite players, and this is the All Blacks that he gets to get his hands on and get involved with. And that, I think, is a scary thought to me.
What sort of a luxury is it to have a bloke in the environment who's actually plotted the downfall of the All Blacks twice
and done it.
And done it. Yeah, exactly.
It's the sort of strength when you think about the conversations that they'll be having and will have had. I can't wait to see the input he's going to have and the effect going forward, because we're hearing already, we've seen it in 2 weeks, and he hasn't been on the ground.
Well, the coaching debate continued on the Breakdown podcast this week. If you missed it, here's a clip between Jeff, of course, and Jim Case talking about the coaching setup.
That team from 2011 to 2015 and sort of through for a year or so, well, no, that team really, you know, Jerome Kano, Tony Woodcock, Kevin Lamu, Richie McCord, Dan Carter, Martin Onu-Conras. The All Blacks had 6 or 7 of the greatest players in the world.
Wait.
We don't have that at the moment, do we?
Hold on, Jim. But between 7 and 11, the same coaching staff, the great coaches of that group, developed them and helped them become the best players and greatest players in the world. So
Great
talent
point.
and
Great
ability,
point. Yeah.
leadership, growth.
Yeah.
Assistant coaches are critical.
That's a strong statement. So where do you think this coaching group's at?
So as soon as they've made the decision on Wednesday, I start thinking about why they've done it and why I think it's going to work and why I say that assistant coaches are so critically important. That period we went through in 11 to 15, that period of success, was on the back of one of the ultimate failures you'd feel in the All Black history is a quarterfinal knockout in 2007. What do? They reappoint that coaching staff. They give them the opportunity to themselves get better and the players get better. Mike Cron, Wayne Smith, Mick Byrne, in that period, best assistant coaches in the world, developing the players into the best team in the world, if not one of the greatest teams. And that's when I look at this group, I think it's so very, very critical that if the alternative didn't have that type of experience, this selection to me gives us huge experience. And I want to show you the numbers. I want to show you the numbers about what they now have at their disposal. This is what they've managed to put together. Ian Foster, remembering he started as the assistant coach with the All Blacks before 2015. So he was part of that World Cup winning team. Joe Schmidt, of course, with Ireland. Jason Ryan, 2 years with Fiji going into this. Scott McLeod, 5 years with the All Blacks. And Greg Feek with both the All Blacks and Ireland. That's a huge amount of experience in terms of coaching at the international level. Not at the domestic game, at the international level now. Now it's a matter of them applying that, Issa and Nisbo, for me, applying that to these players so they get to a level they can achieve greatness for the All Blacks again.
So my question to you, Jeff, is how quickly can they turn this group into a world-class team?
Yeah.
You know, all those names that were mentioned before, legitimate world-class players. Have we got that many at the moment, and how quickly can this group turn them into world-class?
I don't think we have got those players yet, and I think they are still developing players. But if you look back on history, when Ireland started to get things right, there was usually a Leinster-Munster mix. But then when he was head coach of Leinster, the players would go off to camp and start pulling, and then all the Munster guys would start hearing about things. Now you've got nearly a third of the team he has coached with the Blues who'll be going, well, you know, look what he brings, look what he brings. Then you get other players on the ground start hearing that. I think it pulls the performance far quicker in astute coaches. And Jason Ryan as well, you see how quick the impact is. I think really, really good coaches will go, do you know what, I'll put the responsibility on me and I've got the players and I'll get them there.
And to me, it's the skill of being the assistant coach. And I think everyone involved in the professional era of the game would say the most influential coach on the field has been Wayne Smith. We're seeing it already with the Black Ferns in terms of transitioning. Now, clearly, the Black Ferns have got more support than they've ever had. They've got structuring around them that gives them that chance to get better, but they've also got the best mind. And to me, that's something that's critical. Not guys who have come back from being head coaches of teams, guys who are specifically assistant coaches, where their area and focus is so narrowed that you can deliver on an individual basis to the loose forwards, to the locks, to the front row, to the outside backs, the specific feedback. And that's why bringing in these types of coaches. Now, it's not big picture thinking. The responsibility of Jason Ryan. I think Ian Foster's going to do some more coaching on field with the individual players. Get back to that. We saw that in South Africa. I just think this is why it can work. I think Joe Schmidt can focus on the areas that he's dedicated to. Same with Scott McLeod and Greg Feek. With that sort of experience, with the talent level we're talking about, and the focus, the individual focus now, where they understand their roles and they're not, this is it, deliver here. Where can a Fletcher Newell get to in a year's time, a Tyrell Lomax? How much more can we get out of a George Bauer, Samasoni Tokiaho? Some of these young men who are putting up their hands and delivering. Scott Barrett, for example, you know, all of a sudden he seems in the last 2 weeks, he seems to be that accurate, dominant player, that player in the middle row that when Brodie Witalik went down, we went, oh no. Well, that last test match, I'll tell you what, our tight five did pretty damn well.
Look, if you look at it from a head coach point of view, they're going, that is how many games, that's how many weeks, that's how many training sessions we've got till the first World Cup match. He didn't have that luxury 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 6 months ago.
That's right.
He was looking week to week, match to match, win to win. Now you've got the expertise of sort of Joe coming in with Fozzie there and going, plotting, saying, this is what we have to do. This is how we have to get there. Hey, at the end of the day, you still might not get there in 12 months' time, but you'll give it a bloody good shot with the coaches that they've got.
Well, there's one other coach that has been mentioned as many times in the paper as Ian Foster, or if not more, and that is Scott Robertson, of course, the coach of the Crusaders, the most successful coach at Super Rugby level. Where does this leave him, do you think, Grant? Do we lose him in New Zealand?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, he could plug on with the Crusaders and probably win more titles. I'm sure he'll be sought by some overseas teams, whether it's after the World Cup when teams have either failed or succeeded. I'm not sure. I think we are going to lose him short term, maybe even long term. Who knows?
Yeah, it's, you know, if he goes north and coaches the Barbars and understand how many good surf spots there are around Europe, I have a feeling that he'll get that pull. There'll be just too many offers on the table for him. And, you know, a World Cup cycle is a long time to hang around for. And he has proven over and over and over again how good he is at Super Rugby level. So I think a whole World Cup cycle is a little long because there will just be that many offers out on the table.
Yeah, well, this clearly comes down to what Ian Foster's plan is. And the fact Ian Foster is clearly committed to the end of next year's Rugby World Cup. He himself might have had a conversation in New Zealand, you know what, I might be prepared, or I am prepared to move on afterwards. And if you're Scott Robertson and you know that, I'm sure there's a conversation New Zealand Rugby will be having with them. But unfortunately, right now, he has to bide his time, you know, and that's just the nature of professional sport and professional coaching. And there's no doubt you can't argue with his success at Super Rugby level. And there's no doubt that's a challenging competition, but it's certainly not international rugby either, and we've seen that. The contest's completely different. Since our experience, once again, of playing against South Africa in South Africa, that's completely different level to what you're facing coaching at Super Rugby. And once again, I come back to, clearly Razor is an unbelievable motivator, one of the best in the business, but that's not, I don't believe, what the All Blacks desperately need, because they're motivated. When you're in pull the All Black jersey on, you go out there to perform and perform at your very, very best. It's everything else that comes around it and the team of people you can put together that can help them deliver. And that's what Ian Foster's found out in terms of his team. He's had to make some adjustments, and that's been challenging. And now we believe, or I believe, you look at that group and you go, you know what, they deserve that opportunity. Razor, unfortunately, is just going to have to wait if he wants the All Black job.
And that's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just going to gaze into a crystal ball for a second, but when you talk about potential future All Blacks head coaches, could Joe Schmidt be one, Issa, do you think?
You know, there's so many intricacies with coaching groups, how they work, the wins, the losses, the longevity. Other people jump on, other people jump off. No doubt he would handle it, I think, with absolute ease. If he's motivated that way, you know, who knows? I think his love for the game will just get back in and being on the field, doing what he loves best, without the extra responsibility right now. You know, because if you decide to go down that track, you know, good luck trying to sleep for a year.
I'll say this, if he doesn't want to coach the All Blacks after and be part of the coaching staff going forward, I'd offer him the job of head of high performance for New Zealand Rugby. And he would mentor and oversee the growth, the development of coaches, and all of our high performance planning, and helping us build the depth in our coaching and player stocks as you head towards the next generation.
It's clearly a person that we want to keep around, right? After
there are
everything that we've just
very
heard.
few of these people around the world have
Yeah.
got this sort of experience that he has.
Yeah, there's not many at all, and like you even when you spend time in Europe, you hear of the great minds, and Joe Schmidt is one. Wayne Smith is another, and there's not many else that jump into that boat. There's unbelievable coaches out there, but for the minds of rugby and the innovation, you need them in your game. You need Joe in New Zealand, I believe.
I'm still wondering what those pranks are that you pulled on one of the great coaching minds, but maybe that's something for the Breakdown podcast.
You wouldn't last long, I don't reckon, if you got it wrong. Tell you what.
Time now for the trivia question. Grant, your first time doing this.
Oh, my
So I'll be looking at you
Okay.
for support. But today's
Yep.
question, which you can play, of course, is which New Zealand ground do the All Blacks have the worst record at? And you have to have played there 5 times. 5 tests there. It is on the bottom of your screen. Have a think, and when we come back, we'll have the answer for you. Grant Nisbet is going to sub out. Chelsea
called them.
Semple is going
He's
to come
probably
in.
commentated.
probably all of them. He
That
knows.
doesn't mean I know the answer.
Sure.
And when we come back, we are talking all things Black Ferns.
We're so excited for this test match as these two powerhouse teams fight it out for the O'Reilly Cup.
Demand gets it away beautifully. Duplessis, she scores it. Tonight the Ferns now. Kuluna Vale should be hard to stop. 4 metres out, New Zealand. Nan Wu spins, she scores. Central Garrison, that's special. Special try for a special player. Aisha Letiinga, Aisha Letiinga. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, they've talked about wanting to play a fast brand of rugby, and that's exactly what they're doing, and it's the support play,
Those are all backwards
the
from me.
interplay, and everything that they're doing, they're absolutely nailing their core roles, and then they're able to put out beautiful rugby.
How good seeing the Black Ferns back in action on home soil and retaining the all-important O'Reilly Cup. We've got Chelsea Semple joining us on the program. Congratulations. It was an excellent performance from your team, and thank you for coming on as well. We know that it's a busy period for you, and the World Cup is not too far away as well. You're just in time for the trivia question, unfortunately.
I always get stitched up with this.
I know. You always come in and you get the trivia question. If you missed it, the trivia question is, which New Zealand ground do the All Blacks have the worst record at? And they had to have played 5 tests there. Any ideas? Any guesses?
You can go first, have a guess.
I have no idea, but I'm going to guess the Cape Town because I can picture 2 or 3 losses there. I can't think
You're
back too
nodding
far in
away.
history.
Chelsea's like, yeah, good option there. That's not
That's
a
the
bad
one that
guess.
I guessed.
Is
It was a wild guess, but that's what I had in my head.
Funnily enough, I thought to myself it might have been Athletic Park. I thought Wellington as well. So we're thinking Wellington.
Well, you're representing 2 people, so you've got 2
Well, that's what,
masterminds.
to be fair, Nisbo did
Did he
tell me.
whisper it to you?
He said Sky Stadium.
Well, the man's never wrong, is he?
He's there he is. He's hiding in the dark. He's got it hiding in the corner going, maybe I'm wrong. Crikey.
He is never wrong.
He's
he
never
is the
wrong.
master of the quiz.
He's 100%
He's
right.
100% right. But it's not a 100% success rate, because have a look at this. 69%.
Ooh, yuck.
Wow.
I said Athletic Park. I got it right. So that tells you I was guessing. I didn't know
You've
that.
got
Well,
some
there
great
you go.
stories from there, don't you?
Surprise, surprise.
Why? Why is that stadium?
Well, it's a game of 2 halves. If you lose the half, if you've got the wind and you don't get enough points, you lose. It's as pretty much as simple as it gets, right? I mean, I don't know why it was so challenging there, I suppose. I do remember I played a test there where the changing room flooded. We had to put it was an All Black test. It was a good one though. We walloped Australia by 40-odd points.
No, that's all right.
So it was amazing. But yeah, we had to, before we went out on the field, we put our bags on the benches. They said, put your bags on the benches. It's going to flood by the time you get in there. And sure enough, they were 100% right.
Well, talking about walloping Australia, that's
Yeah, there we go.
exactly what the Black Ferns did last night. Unbeaten. You've never lost to Australia since 1994. 21 tests, I think it is. What did you think of the performance last night?
Oh, look, I was proud of the girls. We'd had a great week in the build-up, and obviously new coaching group, a whole lot of new girls getting their debuts for the team this year. Two more debutants last night, and there's been pressure on us since the end of year tour last year. There's no doubt about that, but the way the girls have taken this new game plan and taken it with both hands, put full trust in what we're trying to do, and put a performance like that out there. First time playing down in Otautahi, Christchurch for a number of years, so I know that was really special as we've got quite a few of the Canterbury girls in our team, and they all got their moments last night. We saw Kendra Coxedge leading our haka, which it was just an inspirational moment. It took a lot of courage for her to do that, and everyone in our team was really proud of her. And yeah, I mean, I got to be on the panel with you last night and watch it from a front row seat, and really, really proud of the girls, and awesome to see how well we're building.
This new style, like, it's entertaining to watch, isn't it?
Oh, Australia looked like they were catching ghosts. They just could not keep up, and it was brilliant. So much has happened for the Black Ferns in 6 to 8 months since the end of the tour, but to then come out and put a performance like that, but everyone seemed on par and everyone seemed a step ahead. And Australia were left for dust the majority of the times. Kendra was leading the way, but everyone jumped on board and everyone celebrated every try. That's how much it actually meant. But everyone looked like they were enjoying themselves.
There was a variety to the game. So the areas that the Black Ferns attacked through the middle of the park, they managed to get to the edges. They built pressure through the course of the game where Australia were, like you say, they were chasing ghosts. And the fact that I was interested that Wayne Smith knows they need to get better. As usual, that I wouldn't expect anything less from Smithy. He's never satisfied at the best of times. Don't worry about it. Just carry on, keep working hard, because you'll continue to get better because of it. But I looked at some of the performances, but it all starts up front. You set a good platform, you've got people who understand their roles. Jonah Ananwun, for me, was outstanding. She did a great job in the middle of the park. I put a lot of stock on how people leave the field. When she got substituted, there was plenty of engine in the tank. She was ready to go. I just think, for me, we saw the tight five deliver a really strong platform, which allowed the rest of the team to shine. And so all of a sudden, decision-making was a little bit easier at Chelsea. I'm just really, really happy with the fact, one, clearly everyone's enjoying their rugby, but the fact they're taking on some lessons about how to get better, and we're seeing 1 to 15 all involved.
Well, talking about that, there must be some major selection headaches now, because you've got players coming in from the sevens environment, you've got girls coming back into the environment, like a Kennedy Simon playing her first test this year. How do you pick this team with the depth in the squad?
Well, that's a great question, and one that we'll have to ask Smithy, I guess. But like you talked about the tight five, Jeff, and that tight five is brand new from the last World Cup. But the perks of this year being full-time professional, our front row and our tight five have never been so fit, and the amount of competition in those positions is huge. And then obviously we talk about the sevens girls still being available. We had a camp two weeks ago where all those girls came into our camp, and again, just the calibre of players we've got now that are all fighting fit, that are all wanting to play in this World Cup is just, well, we've never had this level of competition before, and it's so healthy. And the great thing that Wayne Smith's done is he's given everyone an opportunity. Yeah. So not just girls who have played in the black jersey before, who were good at the last World Cup. There's girls that debuted last night that had never even been at a Black Ferns camp before, but they've played some good FPC rugby. And he's been watching our FPC games saying, I think I can make that girl a World Cup winning prop or a World Cup winning player. So that not only pushes everyone who's already in the squad to be better, but it gives those girls who are playing FPC and who haven't quite made the Black Ferns, it gives them hope because they're being seen as well. So it's lifted the entire level from FPC level up to the girls that are already in the Black Ferns.
It's pretty incredible, the transition that's been had in that Black Ferns environment in the last 6 months. If you think about results, coaching changes, similar to where the All Blacks were a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, but
the scrutiny.
But New Zealand rugby as well recognised that they needed to make a bigger commitment, and they started that with Super Rugby Aupiki, right? Yeah. So all of a sudden there was a little bit of exposure, a more intensified training, more competitive environment. You're playing against quality players, so you immediately raise your standard, and then to get the experience of coaching coaching it around you, who have been to big moments and understand what you're working towards. You balance all those things out. I'm not necessarily surprised, because the one thing we've always had, once again, is the ability. It's just enabling that ability to shine. So, but once again, I think we've only scratched the surface. I do think, though, if you get the opportunity to get on this team and back them, you should.
Yeah.
Because they're a different side than they were 6 or 7 months ago. And when you look around the world, this is not an easy tournament to come and win. We're at home. This is it's right on our back doorstep. So all of a sudden, the weight of a nation will get them behind them. I just, and like I say, Smithy will keep things down to earth. That's the great thing. Sir Graham Henry will do exactly the same thing. There'll be an element of randomness at some point with Ted, but I tell you what, it'll make sense eventually.
Yeah.
But I think between them, they've just got the chemistry right, and it's of great benefit to the game right now.
Well, we're going to talk about the coaching setup in a moment, but first, let's hear from the mastermind that is Wayne Smith, because you mentioned it. He wasn't overly happy with the performance last night.
A bit disappointed with the skill level, actually. I think that'll be a real push next week to just execute better. I think I don't think our communication was that specific out wide, and we threw away quite a few tries, I felt, through not executing.
Yeah, he, like you said, he doesn't mince his words, and after that game, the girls celebrated, and rightly so, because we did put a good performance out there, but also in the back of our minds, we understand that Australia are not of the same calibre as England and France are. So come World Cup time, come crunch time, making those mistakes on the field, those unforced errors, if we make those against England or France in crunch time, we won't win the World Cup. So Wayne Smith is obviously always thinking about that, and that's why he's not satisfied yet. We still have to be better.
Can I just ask you to let everyone know, who's in your coaching team? Not just the smaller team, but actually the wider coaching group.
Well, I'm not going to brag, but I am, because in the last few weeks, we've got Wayne Smith, we've got Graham Henry, we've got Mike Cron. Mike Cron's been involved in the most All Blacks Test matches out of any coaching member. We've had Dan Carter come in to do our kicking with our backs. We've had Kevin Mialamu come in to work with hookers. Richie McCaw doing work with leadership and talking to the girls. It's been outstanding. We had Steve Hansen come in while we were down in Christchurch and work with us too. I mean, can you put a price on that coaching group? I think any team in the world, in the entire world, would want that coaching group, wouldn't they? We're so lucky, us girls, and the girls are absolutely loving it. I think the coaches, they're all loving it too. It's an awesome vibe, and man, if there's one way to get us better after what happened at the end of the year tour, these guys are the right ones to come in and do the job.
You talk about high performance, Chelsea, like you can't get any better. You're talking about the greatest players in the world at any given time, plus the experience of these coaches is just phenomenal, right? And it just must rub off on everyone around, and there must just be energy as soon as you step onto that training field. Then when you step off it, there's still energy just surrounded by you.
It is, and it's still really buzzy for the girls. Like we're down on the field at the start of captain's run, running around warming up, and we look up at the bleachers, and Wayne Smith and Graham Henry and the whole coaching group are walking around with Black Ferns on their chest, Black Fern brands on their chest, and I feel really proud and honoured every time I see that. And actually, one of my highlights from the game last night was I was sitting in the stands with Kirst watching the game, and we turned around, and there's somehow some lazy boys being brought into the stand,
just
like literal lazy boys. And there's Sir Graham Henry there with a hot chocolate, leaning back in the lazy boy. He's on the comms, sending comms down to the sideline.
That's part of his contract. He's got that written into his contract. He has to have a lazy boy at the ground.
And so he should. That's exactly what the guy deserves.
You sure it was a hot chocolate?
Oh, I don't know.
You're 100% convinced it was a hot chocolate? Look how comfortable their love and life. When you talk, when Wayne Smith, a number of times he said to me, specific communication, execution, not happy with some of the skills that I saw out there. I saw some wonderful skills, Smithy. Give them just back up just a little bit. You think where they've come from and what you're achieving. I know the standards are so very, very high, but that's what when I hear those things, the messages don't change. The fact that New Zealand rugby players have always been the best at doing the fundamentals of the game. what they've done is they've worked out how to help you execute those fundamentals, make it easier to do under pressure. Just so many of the things that not just the Black Ferns, but the All Blacks have had to deal with in the past and what they're dealing with now. And that's why this coaching team, you know, for them to put up their hand, for New Zealand Rugby to approach them and go, how do we make this work? Why do you want? We want you to help rescue where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And that's why the turnaround, it's not just impressive, but I don't think it should be unexpected.
Remarkable. It's remarkable, that turnaround. The Rugby World Cup is less than 6 weeks away. Go online, support these women and get tickets in Auckland and Northland. There you go. There is the website for you to jump onto right now. The opening match is at Eden Park on October 8th. Before we let you go, Charles, because we know you're flying out to Adelaide tomorrow, you've got another test in a week's time. What would you like to say to the New Zealand public ahead of the World Cup?
Oh, look, I wanted to touch on the fact that we had a really tough end of year tour last year, obviously, but throughout that whole experience we went through where, you know, the media weren't too kind on us, we were getting public backlash, our obviously got a brand new coaching team and all of that, our girls have stayed so tight. There has never been any rift in our playing group, and I think that shines through on the field. You talk about we celebrate each other's try, we celebrate everything each other does, and it's just something really beautiful to be part of. So I think New Zealand public, this is the first time ever we've had a home Rugby World Cup for our Black Ferns, and it's going to be an amazing spectacle. There's going to be some outstanding rugby on display. So get out and get your tickets. They're not expensive. Come and support us. We'll make you proud.
You've already done it. You've already done it, Charles. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Safe travels over to Adelaide and all the very best next weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Well, still plenty more to come here on The Breakdown. When we come back, we catch up with Michael Cheika. Yes, he's back in New Zealand. He's in Christchurch ahead of the next Rugby Championship match between Argentina and the All Blacks.
And then it won't be long at all.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear us?
I can.
Thank you so much for your time. The boys will introduce themselves so you know who's here.
Jeff Wilson here. Hey, Chick, how you going, mate?
I'm all right, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Where are you staying?
We're in the Crown Plaza.
Enjoying Christchurch?
Wow, mate. The jet lag's been the killer of all time this time. It's been a week in Australia and I'm still gone. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I've just come back from SA and I'm battling.
Yeah. Well, look, we've only been here today, so we'll get ourselves sorted. We'll be right.
Nice.
G'day, Chicks. It's Issa. Hope all the kids are well, mate.
Oh, I wouldn't know, to be honest. I haven't seen them for that long. No, they came last week for the game in Argentina and then they're back up in France now. How are you going, mate? All right?
Good, mate. They drag me in when they need a fill-in.
How much time do we have?
No, mate. That's when they want to spruik it up with a bit of class, so don't worry about that.
Oh, what are you trying to say?
Nothing, no. Like, you know, on a nice meal, they put a little bit of that.
Oh, I'm hearing you.
Decorative stuff, you know.
Grant Nisbet here, mate.
Oh, he's gone.
How are you?
Michael will be coming to you in about 30 seconds if you can hear me. Sweet. Okay. All good. No Mai, Hoki Mai, welcome back into The Breakdown. Great to have you joining us tonight and great to have the Rugby Championship back this weekend. The All Blacks taking on Argentina. And I tell you what, everyone has won one game. Argentina are currently top of the Rugby Championship table, and joining us from Christchurch inside their campus, head coach Michael Cheika. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome back to New Zealand. There must be a lot of confidence in this team.
Thanks very much for having me. Look, it's part of what we're trying to build. You know, the guys haven't, won a heap of rugby championship games. So it's about trying to get that winning mentality, you know, and that's something that we're trying to work on. So confidence is a part of that, and then being able to back it up on the weekend is the other part.
Michael, a remarkable turnaround, losing the first test against the Wallabies, to be able to turn it around. What did you actually do to turn that team around for the second test?
Oh, mate, I think the first test was a little bit disappointing, actually, because we're really in a good position to win that. And we sort of imploded, I think, at the back end. Like, it gave away 7 penalties in 6 minutes or something like that. I think that there's been a lot of changes around just some style, obviously with a different coaching team, different style that we're looking to play, and getting the guys, the more you get to use that, not just in training, but in the real life situation of the game, and then things work for you and they click, and you start to believe in things a little bit more, which is a process. It's longer term, but we did make a few small changes tactically, but more about just believing in what we're up to, you know, and going out there and trusting yourself to do it.
Checks, Issa here. What type of influence does Felipe have on the group?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he's a different man as a coach than he was as a player. He's become a lot more measured. You know, the fire has been internal that he shows has been channeled internally, and he's got obviously great experience being with Leinster and coaching there and learning a lot from the great coaches that they've had there. And I think he brings a lot of the things that I remember from way back when we went there originally and we got to coach there, you know, a lot of those attacking principles, a lot of detail around the preparation. And we're coaching a little bit different here where everyone's taken a bit of a role in everything we're doing. So he's very central in a lot of the communication that goes on at training. Obviously, with the language situation, we're trying to work it so it's as effective as possible, the coaching. And he's really taken a lead in that. And I really enjoyed, you know, hanging with him in this capacity. I won't say work, 'cause it's not really work. You know what I mean? I'm hanging out with him in this capacity because it's different to our relationship in the past. And I've really enjoyed, you know, being involved with him as well.
I think Ian Foster would disagree in terms of it being work. It's definitely been hard work here in New Zealand.
Look, no, it's not work at all. He's the coach of New Zealand. They're one of the best countries in the world in rugby. He should be loving it. Even when it's tough, mate, it doesn't matter. You know, that comes with the territory of footy. It gets tough. It's a brilliant position to have. It's a great honour if you're in that position, and you love it. You get to go out and be involved in footy every day. It doesn't matter how tough it gets. It's part of the game, just like when you're a player.
Check, I've got to ask you the fact that you've really, this squad has come together and there's a lot of experience in this group now, and timing its run and getting it right for next year's Rugby World Cup. If now you're in charge, what's the ceiling for this group? Because I see some remarkable talent which can deliver. It just needs to deliver on a more consistent basis. How do you make that shift?
Yeah, by being consistent day to day, mate. You know, like just demanding high standards, right, but never taking away from what they're good at, which is the passion that they have for the game and how they love being together as a group. There's a lot of, you know, amateur spirit about this team, even though they're pros, and I think just making sure that every day is grand final day, you know, I mean, not from an intensity point of view, but around preparation and learning to live, you know, a bit more like winners, because I haven't had a lot of that. So that and timing our run towards World Cup is definitely important. You know, I think that's something we've done. We haven't brought some of our players here, or some of our older players in the front row, because the challenge we have around coordinating 12 months of the year seasons for these guys. Now they're playing their club rugby in Europe, their international rugby in the Southern Hemisphere. It's really important that we're sort of working with their clubs to give them breaks, because we've got a fair few over 30s, and it's about making sure that they get to the World Cup next year in the best possible physical form.
Michael, as part of your preparation and homework for this game on Saturday, I guess you've had a pretty good look at the All Blacks. What have you thought of their performances, particularly the two in South Africa, and do you see them as slightly vulnerable?
Mate, I've been in too many games against New Zealand to even know what that word means for them, you know what I mean? Like, the reality is that everyone's lifting their game to play against New Zealand. You know, everyone's getting pumped up, and they showed a lot of character in the game in South Africa. The second game, the first game, thought they were unlucky to have that scoreline. You know, and then the second game they showed immense character under huge pressure, and that'll only do well for them. You know what I mean? Coming into this game, and obviously, you know, realistically, everyone's expecting them to dust us in the 2 games at home. The only people who have got to think the opposite to that is us, you know, and believe that way and try to win the small battles along the way. So I think, you know, there's so much quality in the team across the board that we don't really look at it in that way. We're just taking what we're analysing in front of us, the quality of the players, and the team as a whole, and then trying to work out how can we put them under pressure, make them have to deal with the challenge from us, as well as, you know, the normal things that go on in a test match, the intensity, the physicality, and all those types of things that go with it.
Michael, thank you so much for taking time during Test Week to talk to us here on The Breakdown. We appreciate it, and enjoy your week down in Christchurch.
No worries at all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Michael Cheika, the head coach of the Pumas, coming to us. Isn't he a calm character? He's relaxed there, isn't he?
Have a look at him in the box.
Yeah, that's the problem. Does he have that cow, the cat?
Oh, look, I find it fascinating. Oh, Ian Foster should just love it. Just sit back and relax. And, I mean, here's a guy who's completely comfortable in his own skin, understands exactly who he is. Even with Australia, he was exactly the same way. Yeah. Like, I love his attitude towards the game. This could be the perfect place for him with this Pumas side, because he's talking about them. Oh, everyone's expecting the All Blacks to dust them. A couple of years ago, they played out of their skin, played the game of their lives, and they were able to beat the All Blacks. Now, those players have been through that experience now. The All Blacks will not underestimate them. No,
not at all. Cheik said there's a lot of this current squad up in Europe playing for big teams and are big-time players up there. I think people underestimate how detailed Cheika is. He's a very good planner. I think it goes back to his business days. It goes back to his time in Europe as coach, Australia's coach. But I feel he knows how to get players to play for him. And you see the emotion of the Argentinian players. That's special. So if he can sort of bottle that up and continue to push them, as he sort of said, daily around standards, not just on the field, what he does off the field in preparation, yeah, these guys are a dark horse that are top of the championship at the moment.
I think in many ways he's probably more relaxed these days. The expectation when he was the Wallaby coach that, you know, they were going to be better than what they finished up being. But as you say, you know, with Argentina, the expectations are not so great. And he's been around that environment. He's very good mates of Mario Ledesma, who was the previous coach. And so he's been around that environment for quite some time.
What do the All Blacks do this week? We're back in New Zealand. Do they keep the same team that they won with in Ellis Park, or would you tinker? What would you do, Issa?
I think you've got to give the team that won at Ellis Park another shot. I think you've got to test the forwards. They were put out there in a cauldron. Now they've got to back it up, because I think it's one thing to have a really big test, but this is where the Shannon Frizzels, the front row, the Lomax, these guys have to actually perform again up against a different beast in Argentina. Very physical forward pack. So from my eyes, the test team has to sort of repeat itself and get sort of build those small sort of connections. It's not a long way to a World Cup, so the more time some of those connections and intimate relationships of the players on the field sort of build together, they just need more time out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to reward the players who went in as the underdogs at Ellis Park and played fantastically well. I was going to say annoyed, I'd be disappointed if they change the team. It's got to be the same team.
Interesting enough, though, there's a number of guys who have played this weekend who didn't go to South Africa. Off for Tawanga Fasi, you've got Nepo Lalali, you've got Jack Goodhue, who played for Northland. All of a sudden they become available again. If everyone showed up to training, there'd be 45 there probably. I mean, that's the reality of what the All Blacks are having to deal with. But now there's that security and the protection of coaching right through until next year's Rugby World Cup. The vision changes. When you're not coaching, like you said, from week to week, performance to performance, I agree with you entirely. Some of these young men have got to get as many opportunities as they possibly can. And when is it time to introduce maybe even more different personnel? When do we see Dalton Papali'i again, or Roger Tuivasa-Sheck get an opportunity to impact off the bench? But I think you have to consider there's still going to be... The bench is the way for me to give these guys a chance. Just like Lomax and De Groot came into the selection debate, they played 30 minutes of really good rugby in the first test against South Africa. Then the second test, you know, they've got their elevation. You know what? You've proved you can compete. Now give us 50. I think that'll be the way forward for some of these guys who haven't played.
There's not too many test matches to go. We're on a fine timeline between now and World Cup.
8 this year.
8 this year, and so much planning goes into sort of 8 tests, but it's not a big amount of time. So Mitre 10 Cup, all the extra games mean something, but these guys just have to be out there week to week in as many games as they can to actually perform.
It's been great to see them in the NPC as well, hasn't it? 13 All Blacks. Fantastic,
absolutely. And they make a big difference too, don't they? Look, the hard part of the season's gone. Ireland and South Africa, it doesn't get any harder than that. You know, I don't want to belittle Argentina or Australia, but we should beat them twice. Then you get to Japan, Scotland, Wales. England's going to be tough, right? But look, the hard part of the season's over, and you know, I think it's time to cash in.
You've had some sort of week though, from Johannesburg. Where were you yesterday?
Jerry Collins Stadium, Porirua.
Porirua.
Well, you've come from Invercargill.
What's that?
You've come straight from Invercargill.
Straight from Invercargill. That's 100%
That's a gutsy effort.
That's a gutsy effort.
No scones or fires?
No fires this week. Great game of rugby it was though. Don Stewart Memorial. Well done, Otago. Well done, Otago. Look, it has been great action, but bring on, I'm sorry, 7 days' time.
Yeah. The Rugby Championship back in New Zealand. Good to have rugby back in New Zealand as well. Thank you so much for coming on, Grant. Great to have you back, Jeff and Issa, as well. Great to have you joining us today. We'll be back on The Breakdown, same time, same place next week.
And what an ovation this is by the hardy crowd here tonight in Christchurch. Going to score the opening try. A lovely ball back on the inside. Coxage for Isaletinga. Duplessis, she scores it. Simon, little short pass. Jermaine McMenamin to match again. Isaletinga. Absolutely brilliant. That's special. And the Black Ferns, some display in Christchurch.